Jacques Delacroix was a name that commanded respect in boardrooms and headlines alike. As the visionary co-founder of a European tech giant, he built an empire worth billions and left an indelible mark on the world of innovation. But behind the sleek suits, the billion-dollar deals, and the relentless pursuit of success was a man whose private life was shrouded in mystery. It wasn't until a devastating car crash claimed Jacques' life that the world began to unravel the secrets he left behind. Among them was a revelation that sent shockwaves through his family and the business world: a child, born out of wedlock, living thousands of miles away in Brazil. This is the story of Maria, a young receptionist from a modest Brazilian background, and her daughter Marcela, whose existence would spark one of the most contentious inheritance battles in modern history. Their journey, fueled by resilience and an unyielding quest for justice, would change their lives forever. Jacques Delacroix was a man of vision. His ascent from a gifted young engineer to a world-renowned tech mogul was the stuff of legend. By his early 40s, he had co-founded a company that revolutionized artificial intelligence, and his net worth was well over $500 million. But for all his brilliance, Jacques had a restless spirit. He craved challenges and new frontiers, which eventually led him to Brazil. The burgeoning tech industry in South America presented a promising opportunity. Jacques envisioned a future where his company would dominate global markets, and Brazil was a key part of that plan. His visit wasn't just about business, it was a strategic move to establish a foothold in an untapped market. During one of his meetings with a potential partner, Jacques crossed paths with Maria. A 25-year-old receptionist with warm eyes and a shy smile, Maria was working at a tech firm in São Paulo. For her, Jacques was just another visiting executive, albeit one with an unusual charm. Unlike others who demanded attention, Jacques was unassuming, even disarming in his casual demeanor. Their interactions began innocently, simple exchanges at the front desk, polite nods during coffee breaks. But Jacques, ever the charmer, soon found ways to linger a little longer, ask a few more questions, and share glimpses of his life. Maria, unaware of his billionaire status, found herself drawn to his humor and sincerity. Their connection deepened quickly. Jacques admired Maria's authenticity, a refreshing contrast to the calculated personas he often encountered. For Maria, Jacques represented something unattainable yet magnetic. Their romance, however, was fleeting. Jacques was a man on the move, and his commitments in Europe meant he couldn't stay. He left Brazil with promises to stay in touch, but as months passed, Maria heard nothing from him. What Jacques didn't know, or perhaps refused to acknowledge, was that he had left behind more than memories. Maria discovered she was pregnant just weeks after Jacques' departure. Overwhelmed by fear and uncertainty, she resolved to face her new reality alone. Little did she know, her decision would set the stage for a battle that would transcend borders and redefine the legacy of one of the world's most enigmatic men. Maria's world had always been defined by simplicity. She lived modestly in a small apartment, barely scraping by on her receptionist's salary. But Jacques Delacroix turned her life upside down. Their brief relationship, full of whispered conversations and stolen moments, had been a whirlwind she never expected. Jacques treated Maria with a respect she wasn't used to, making her feel seen in a way that no one else had. But Jacques was never meant to stay. His departure was abrupt, though not unexpected. Promises to stay in touch quickly faded into silence, and Maria was left wondering if the connection they shared had been real or just another fleeting affair for a man like Jacques. Weeks later, the answer came in a way she never imagined. The nausea, fatigue, and late period confirmed what she feared most. She was pregnant. Alone and terrified, Maria wrestled with the reality of raising a child by herself. She had no way to contact Jacques, and even if she did, she doubted he would want to be involved. As her belly grew, Maria's fears were matched only by her determination. She continued working as long as she could, saving every penny for her unborn child. When the time came, Maria gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. She named her Marcela, a name that carried the hope of strength and resilience. Marcela was a bright, curious child, and Maria loved her fiercely. Yet, as the years passed, it became impossible to ignore the questions. Marcela's striking blue eyes, a rarity in their Brazilian community, were a constant reminder of the man who had left them behind. When Marcela began to ask about her father, Maria could only offer vague answers. Life was hard, but Maria refused to give up. She worked tirelessly to provide for Marcela, doing everything she could to give her daughter a chance at a better life. But in her heart, Maria carried the burden of an unfinished story, one that she knew would one day demand resolution. Maria's life took an unexpected turn when an old colleague from the tech firm visited her. Over coffee, they reminisced about Jacques, the enigmatic Frenchman who had left a lasting impression. As the conversation turned to Maria's struggles, her friend suggested something Maria had never considered: reaching out to Jacques. Initially, Maria dismissed the idea. How could she, a single mother from São Paulo, contact one of the most powerful men in Europe? Yet, as she looked at Marcela, who had inherited not just Jacques' eyes but his curious mind, Maria decided she owed it to her daughter to try. With her friend's help, Maria wrote a letter. It was simple yet heartfelt, describing Marcela's life and the struggles they faced. She included a photo of Marcela, her blue eyes unmistakably Jacques'. The letter was sent through a mutual contact at Jacques' company, and Maria could do nothing but wait. Months passed with no response. Maria assumed the letter had been ignored. Or worse, never reached Jacques. She forced herself to move on, focusing on Marcela and the small victories that came with each day. What Maria didn't know was that Jacques had received the letter. It had been delivered to his assistant, who hesitated to pass it along, fearing it was just another fabricated claim. When Jacques finally read it, he was stunned. The photo left no room for doubt. Marcela was his daughter. Jacques intended to visit Brazil, to meet the daughter he had never known. But before he could act, tragedy struck. Driving late at night on a rain-slicked highway in the south of France, Jacques' car spun out of control and collided with an oncoming truck. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Jacques Delacroix's sudden death was a headline that reverberated across the globe. The enigmatic billionaire, known for his revolutionary work in technology, was gone. The circumstances of his death, a car crash on a winding highway in southern France, raised questions, but there were no clear answers. As his family mourned, the legal world braced for the battle that would inevitably follow. Jacques had left behind an estate worth over $500 million, but with no clear will outlining his intentions, the courts would decide its fate. His immediate family, led by his mother, moved swiftly to secure control over his assets. However, Jacques' private life was about to complicate everything. Amid the chaos, a single letter resurfaced, Maria's heartfelt plea to Jacques about their daughter, Marcela. The letter had initially been dismissed by Jacques' assistant, but it now caught the attention of the estate's legal team. The enclosed photograph of Marcela, her striking blue eyes a mirror of Jacques', left little room for doubt. Maria, meanwhile, had no idea of Jacques' death. Life in São Paulo was as demanding as ever, and she had little access to international news. It wasn't until a former colleague mentioned it that Maria learned the truth. Her heart sank. Jacques was gone, and with him, any chance for Marcela to meet her father. But her colleague brought more than just news of Jacques' death. A lawyer representing the Delacroix estate had contacted them, inquiring about Marcela. Maria's heart raced. Was this an opportunity to secure a future for her daughter, or was it a trap designed to discredit her claim? Encouraged by her friend, Maria agreed to speak with the lawyer. Their conversation was both tense and revealing. The lawyer explained that multiple individuals were already claiming to be Jacques' illegitimate children. If Maria wished to pursue a claim, she would need undeniable proof, DNA evidence linking Marcela to Jacques. The request wasn't simple. Jacques' body had been cremated at the insistence of his mother, eliminating any possibility of a direct DNA match. Personal belongings that could have provided evidence, hairbrushes, razors, or clothing, were suspiciously missing. Maria felt the walls closing in, but she refused to give up. With the help of a local attorney in Brazil, Maria began her fight. She petitioned the French courts to allow access to Jacques' medical records, hoping to find stored DNA samples. The estate's lawyers, however, fought back fiercely. They argued that without clear evidence, Maria's claim was frivolous and an insult to Jacques' legacy. Weeks turned into months, and Maria found herself at the center of a legal and media storm. Headlines painted her as everything from a gold digger to a grieving mother seeking justice. Marcela, now old enough to understand some of what was happening, asked questions that Maria struggled to answer. Amid the mounting pressure, a breakthrough came. A nurse from a clinic Jacques had visited for a minor procedure years earlier contacted Maria's legal team. She believed the clinic might still have a preserved blood sample from Jacques. It was a long shot, but it was their only hope. The French courts eventually granted permission to test the sample. When the results arrived, they were definitive. Marcela was Jacques Delacroix's biological daughter. The confirmation sent shockwaves through the Delacroix family. Maria's claim, once dismissed as baseless, was now undeniable. But the fight wasn't over. While the DNA test proved Marcela's lineage, securing her rightful share of the estate required navigating a web of legal and familial opposition. Jacques' mother, who had dismissed Maria and Marcela as frauds, now faced a harsh reality. Her son had left behind a daughter she never knew, and the world now knew it too. For Maria, the road ahead was still uncertain. But for the first time, she felt a sense of vindication. Her daughter's future was no longer a question of survival, it was a matter of justice. Maria, however, was no stranger to adversity. Fueled by a mother's determination, she partnered with a skilled attorney in France, Émile Durand, who specialized in inheritance disputes. Émile warned her that the battle ahead would be grueling. "They will question everything," he said. "Your intentions, your story, even your character. You must stay strong." The Delacroix estate's legal team, armed with nearly unlimited resources, mounted an aggressive defense. They argued that the DNA evidence alone was insufficient, claiming it could have been falsified. They scrutinized Maria's past, combing through every detail of her life to find anything they could use against her. In court, Maria faced harsh questioning. "Why didn't you reach out to Jacques earlier?" one attorney asked, his tone dripping with skepticism. Maria, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment, replied, "I tried. I wrote to him. I sent photos. But by the time he saw them, it was too late." The courtroom drama was intense. Émile presented evidence of Maria's letter, the photograph of Marcela, and testimonies from mutual contacts who confirmed Jacques' intention to visit Brazil before his death. Yet, the opposition countered with arguments designed to cast doubt. They portrayed Maria as an opportunist, suggesting she had fabricated the entire narrative to exploit a tragic situation. Meanwhile, the media frenzy surrounding the case only added to the pressure. Journalists followed Maria's every move, publishing headlines that alternated between sympathy and scandal. For Marcela, now a teenager, the attention was overwhelming. She struggled to understand why her legitimacy was being questioned so publicly. But amidst the chaos, there were moments of support. Letters from people inspired by Maria's courage began to pour in. Strangers wrote about their own struggles for justice, offering words of encouragement. Maria clung to these small victories, using them to fuel her resolve. After months of hearings and deliberations, the court moved to mediation. The Delacroix family, recognizing the strength of Maria's case, proposed a settlement. But Maria, guided by Émile, refused to back down unless Marcela's rightful place as Jacques' daughter was formally acknowledged. The turning point came during the final stages of negotiation. A private investigator hired by Maria's legal team uncovered a critical piece of evidence, an email from Jacques to a close friend, written shortly before his death. In it, Jacques mentioned his intention to meet Marcela and expressed regret for his absence in her life. When the email was presented in court, it silenced the opposition. The authenticity of the message was undeniable, and it reinforced the DNA evidence. The Delacroix family had no choice but to concede. Marcela was officially recognized as Jacques Delacroix's biological daughter, and the court awarded her a significant share of the estate, $120 million. For Maria, the victory was bittersweet. She had fought tirelessly to secure her daughter's future, but the journey had taken a toll. The months of scrutiny, doubt, and relentless legal challenges had left her emotionally exhausted. Yet, as she looked at Marcela, who now stood taller and more confident than ever, Maria knew it had all been worth it. With the court ruling behind them, Maria and Marcela stepped into a world neither had ever imagined. The $120 million inheritance had catapulted them from their modest life in São Paulo to global attention. Marcela was now officially recognized as Jacques Delacroix's daughter, a status that carried immense wealth, but also immense responsibility. The Delacroix estate, now under new management, placed Marcela's share in a trust, carefully overseen by financial advisors. For Maria, this arrangement was both a relief and a source of concern. While the trust ensured Marcela's inheritance was protected, it also meant navigating a world of lawyers, investors, and decisions that felt far removed from their former lives. Marcela, only 16, struggled to reconcile her newfound identity. At school, she was no longer just another student. Whispers followed her in the hallways, some admiring, others envious. Teachers, once strict and impartial, now seemed to tread lightly around her. For a teenager already grappling with the loss of a father she never knew, the weight of sudden fame and fortune was overwhelming. Maria, too, faced challenges. The media continued to hound them, framing their story as everything from a heartwarming tale of justice to a cynical ploy for wealth. Strangers approached them on the street, offering unsolicited advice or demanding handouts. Maria quickly realized that their lives would never return to the quiet simplicity they once knew. Determined to provide Marcela with stability, Maria sought help from trusted advisors recommended by Émile. Together, they charted a plan to use the inheritance wisely. They invested in Marcela's education, ensuring she would have every opportunity to excel. They also allocated funds to improve their living conditions, moving to a safer neighborhood where Marcela could focus on her studies without the distractions of their old life. But the challenges didn't stop there. The Delacroix family, though legally defeated, remained cold and distant. Jacques' mother, in particular, refused to acknowledge Marcela. This rejection stung more than any media headline. Marcela, despite her strength, couldn't help but feel like an outsider in the family she had fought so hard to belong to. Maria, sensing her daughter's pain, encouraged her to focus on what truly mattered. "You don't need their acceptance," she said one evening. "What you have, your heart, your mind, your courage, that's what defines you. Not their approval." Slowly, Marcela began to embrace her identity. She threw herself into her studies, excelling in subjects like mathematics and literature. With Maria's guidance, she also began exploring ways to honor her father's legacy. Inspired by Jacques' work in technology, Marcela expressed interest in creating opportunities for underprivileged children to access education in science and technology. Maria couldn't have been prouder. Despite the trials they had faced, Marcela was growing into a young woman with a vision and purpose. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time, Maria felt they were not defined by their struggles, but by their resilience. Still, the shadows of the past lingered. Marcela often wondered what her life might have been like had Jacques lived. Questions about his intentions, his regrets, and the kind of relationship they could have shared haunted her. Maria could only offer comfort, reminding Marcela that the choices they made now were what mattered most. As the months passed, Marcela began to find her footing. She no longer saw herself solely as Jacques Delacroix's daughter but as someone determined to forge her own path. Together, she and Maria started planning initiatives that would not only honor Jacques but also reflect their own values. A life built on justice, opportunity, and hope. Their journey, though filled with unexpected twists, had brought them closer than ever. For Maria and Marcela, the challenges they faced were not the end of their story, but the beginning of something greater. As Marcela approached adulthood, the weight of her inheritance and identity began to shift. No longer was she the shy teenager overwhelmed by the pressures of sudden wealth. With Maria's steadfast support and her own determination, Marcela had grown into a confident young woman with a clear vision for her future. Her experiences inspired her to turn her father's wealth into a force for good. Partnering with educators and tech innovators, Marcela established a foundation dedicated to providing access to technology and education for underprivileged children in Brazil. She named it the Delacroix Initiative, a nod to the father she never knew but whose influence shaped her life. The foundation's first project focused on creating community tech hubs in São Paulo's most underserved neighborhoods. These hubs provided free access to computers, internet, and coding classes. Marcela personally visited each site, sharing her story and encouraging young people to dream big. For Maria, watching Marcela thrive was bittersweet. The struggles they had endured seemed like distant memories, yet the scars remained. Still, Maria knew that every battle had been worth it. Marcela was using her inheritance not just for herself, but for others, transforming what once felt like a burden into a beacon of hope. Maria and Marcela's journey is one of love, resilience, and triumph over adversity. They turned their challenges into opportunities, proving that even the heaviest of burdens can be carried with grace. Marcela's work with the foundation gained international recognition, further cementing her place as not just Jacques Delacroix's daughter, but a force in her own right. Maria, while preferring a quieter life, remained her daughter's greatest supporter, offering wisdom and encouragement at every step. Their story invites reflection. What would you do if you were in Marcela's position? Could you rise above public scrutiny, familial rejection, and the pressures of wealth to create something meaningful? We'd love to hear your thoughts. How did this story impact you? If you had to rate it, how many stars would you give? Leave a comment below and share your reflections. Your feedback helps us grow and deliver even more inspiring content. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support is invaluable in bringing stories like this to life. Wishing you an inspiring journey ahead and all the best in your endeavors.